Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Astrology and Beyond. Today, with your host, Tatiana, also broadcasting for ANN, Archetypal News Network. And today, I will bring you the astro weather for the first 2 weeks of November. Today, I am recording on October 31st, also known as the Day of the Dead, Day of All Saints, in different pagan and Wiccan histories and practices. This day is a day that signals the passage or the death of the passage towards the winter in the northern hemisphere. So it's the death of all the plants and crops and the end of the harvest. And this is when gardens go to bed, except the garlic, which I planted yesterday. And it's a time that is archetypically linked to, of course, the season of Scorpio. And that's why we have things like, ta-da, in the collective psyche. We have all the night creatures, the bats and the spiders, and everything that lurks beneath the shadows. And there is the connection to death as part of a cycle that is inherent in this existence. So with this being said, happy Halloween if you celebrate Halloween in any way, shape, or form. And also happy time of transformation, because this is mainly what I'd like to talk about. The deep times we're living, we're in deep transformative times at this moment, and the energy in the sky is pushing us to take out of the depths everything that we need to really look at, so we can let it go and move on to the next season. And this next season, we know it's not a short season. There is an ending of a very big cycle with the lunar eclipse on October 28th that I did not cover in my last video. It was really too long, and I have been literally eclipsed because it's been really, really intense in the energy. It's been a lot. So the lunar eclipse on October 28th marks also the last series of eclipses in the Taurus and Scorpio axis, which for the past year, it's been past 2 years, basically, it's been showing us where we are putting our values. It's been showing us the things we are attached to versus the new things that we need to look towards as we reconfigure the whole idea about value, safety, the body, resources. How do we resource ourselves? How do we nourish ourselves? What nourishes our spirit, our body? How do we access the values in general? And we have seen our whole financial system being like all scrambled. And the question is, what do we truly value? This last eclipse was the last eclipse for a long time. Again, when the nodes will be again in this Taurus, the Scorpio axis, will be 9 years. So for the next 9 years, we will not be revisiting this particular topic. So at the closure of this topic, what have you learned? What have you learned about sharing, values, people, relationships, money? These are all the themes that we were trying to, the North Node pointed us towards. And during the eclipses, what happens is we have these opportunities to see where things are not aligning in those areas of life. I had a dream last night, which was pretty interesting because at least for me, it had everything to do with value and what's important. And in a nutshell, basically, I was in the Titanic. Go figure. I was in the Titanic, and there was this beautiful, lavish musical going on where everybody's just singing, and there's these pastries, and there's a pastry shop, and people are eating this like calorie-filled pastries, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I want that, even though I know that's like not good for me. I saw somebody eating that, so I wanted to eat the same thing. So I went to the bakery and saw that they were having these like buns, and other people were buying them, so there were none left. So the lady at the bakery tells me, well, you actually would like this chocolate cake. But I was looking at a little donut that I really wanted, and I was thinking, well, it's the cheapest thing, I probably can afford that donut. But and I really want the donut, I don't want the cake, which is more expensive and more fancy. But in the end, I ended up buying the cake because this lady wanted me to buy the cake. So I bought the cake and I ate the cake, and I didn't really like the cake. But in the end, the whole thing was happening, was crazy. And then there's a boat with fishermen, 2 fishermen, telling us that we have hit an iceberg. And the iceberg, and nobody in the ship knows what's happening. And of course, I know the story. I saw also the movie. Leo. I'm the king of the world. I'm just joking. Anyway, so in this part of the dream, these 2 fishermen, one of them wants to come onto the boat because he sees how beautiful and bright and fancy it is, and the other fisherman is observing what's happening, and this ship has just hit an iceberg, and it's sinking basically. And this fisherman actually doesn't care for all these things. He just wants to stay in his boat and fish his fish. And I am in the dream, then I am actually in the water, just, and it's not that cold, so I'm like just in the water going, well, I think I can swim to shore. And or I'm, maybe this means that we're all going to die. And there was this kind of peaceful acceptance of this whole construction of the idealistic things that we might value or want that was sinking. And that was very, very telling to me. When I woke up, I was like, wow, talk about insight, about value, about what's important. I don't know, I'm still trying to piece it all together because it's a very profound dream that has many, many symbols. And you know, when the psyche is so open, especially during these times where the veils get a little bit thinner, we can get access to a lot of information from our higher guidance. And for me, this was a really clear sign that there's something about what we truly value, what we need, what we want, and to make sure that it comes from within ourselves and not from the outside world that's always trying to bring us or give us temptations of all kinds that might actually misalign us with what our soul is telling us. So this was a little bit of a closure. And if we've been doing this cleanup, for lack of a better word, then these eclipses might not have been as intense. But what they're pointing at is like, now we need to move into a new chapter. This is all that's happening. Now I'm going to share my screen. There's a lot to talk about, so I hope you can stay until the end of this video because it's very deep what's happening these first 2 weeks. And I would say it's not as intense astrologically as other times, as October was like really intense. This is, let's say, a little bit of the intensity subsides. Nonetheless, it's very dynamic still. So we will have the important things happening this week. Definitely the Saturn going direct after its retrograde period, and that's going to mark a very different energy moving forward that I will talk about. Venus will be entering Libra, so finally Venus moves into a very comfortable place where relationships might be giving a little push of harmony and grace this time, after probably a lot of tension and power and difficult dynamics. Mercury will enter Sagittarius, and we will have also the new moon in Scorpio. And let's dive into all our magnificent aspects. So we kick off the month, like I said, with the end of that with the eclipse and with I gotta say something about this Mars Mercury that was happening on October 31st, October 30th, 31st, November 1st. So we still are under the influence this couple next weeks of this Mars Mercury conjunction opposing Uranus, and the Sun opposing Jupiter. So this energy might be pointing towards a very deep need to see ourselves and the shadows and the depth of being. And at the same time, we could get very sharp tongue. There could be a lot of conflict arising from wanting to assert oneself, and then maybe having a little bit of an inflated ego could be part also of this opposition, and maybe having rash reactions, or again, say things that you might regret later. So while this transit is still in effect this next couple days, at least until probably Saturday, so basically this whole week, I would say please use tact in your communications. Make sure that what you have to say stems from your truth, but doesn't need to come across as something hurtful. Because when we have Mars Mercury, it's like it could be a very lively and asserted sense of self, and that's great. But when we have the oppositions to Jupiter and to Uranus, there could be either too much optimism about what we're thinking about ourselves, our being, and our desires, and not necessarily a more grounded approach. And what can happen with Mars Mercury is that it's, the tongue can become a sword. This is where our words can become hurtful if we're not cautious of how we're delivering the truth of our being. So it's very important to connect to who we are, the depths of the depths, which is the Scorpio. And also the Mars Mercury can be also obsessed with finding a certain truth, or can get very attached to an idea. And until we uncover that to the depths of that idea, then there can be just an obsessive thinking, which is great if you're a criminologist trying to find and solve a murder or something like that. That's excellent. It's trying to find the solution to something that's very, very deep. But it can also bring lots of power struggles, because Mars in Scorpio wants what it wants, and it will go for it no matter what. It could even be forceful. This is kind of a little bit like having Pluto. This is Scorpio is a Mars and Pluto ruled sign. So it's like this energy of I will do anything it takes to get to the bottom of things. That's literally that. So when that energy is present, is really great to complete projects, to move on with things that are really important, that we want to get to the bottom of. It's great if we want to get to the bottom of a conflict, for instance, that has been lurking, and again, we're digging and digging those elephants from underground and to get to the absolute bottom, to then regenerate, because Scorpio is the energy of the death and the rebirth. So what this energy gives us is the opportunity, especially with that opposition with Uranus. There's an opportunity for renewal, but at what expense? If we just do it brashly and aggressively and on a whim, then what can happen is we destroy something that doesn't necessarily need to be destroyed. So here, the word of caution is take deep breaths before speaking. Take deep breaths before moving on to the next thing. Cutting, remember, Scorpio and Taurus is all or nothing. So before you sever, and that's it, and sever whatever it is, relationships, jobs, anything, give it a good thought. Let this week kind of settle a little bit, and maybe allow your obsessive mind and restlessness to settle, so we can see clearly. Otherwise, there can be, I mean, the determination is there for anything, and that is what we need to harness, the energy of determination, but not the energy of war. And we might see in the world stage how much conflict has arisen these past couple weeks. The world has lots of places with war happening. And if we cannot keep our inner peace, then we will come at war with ourselves as well. And these energies can bring that as well. So where are we fighting? It can be our own thoughts. We can be fighting our own selves. And then this is why it's an energy of conflict. Because if we're not at peace with our own being, then we project that outside, and then we create conflict so we can see. So when conflict arises, conflict is just showing us, where are we not choosing peace? Where are we not choosing harmony? So this is kind of a little bit of an this is the time where we can access that. So if you're coming into conflict with people, then ask yourselves, where am I not at peace? If you're obsessing over something, where am I attached to something that I might probably need to let go? Especially because with the opposition of Uranus, there might be also a need to break free from something. And the Scorpio wants to attach to something. So maybe we need to just say, you know what, let's let go of these thoughts, of these ideas, and allow room for new things to flourish. So that's part of the magic of Scorpio as well. So, and coming towards the end of this week, towards Saturday, then we have again this opposition of Jupiter to the Sun, which points towards the need to balance our personal goals and our optimism or our pipe dreams. Like we can have a lot of drive to accomplish something, but we need to also make sure that what we want to accomplish is realistic. And so take anything with a grain of salt, basically. And all your own ideas, and maybe you think there's these grand visions which are available to us at this moment with Jupiter in Taurus, how to balance those personal goals with a dose of realism. I think this is where we need to be also realistic in what we're creating. So that's important to take into consideration. So the other thing with the Mercury opposition Uranus is that we can be having, again, that mental tension, erratic thinking, maybe a lack of focus, not being able to concentrate, or just having too much in our minds. So during this time, what I would say, if we don't want to be too crazy in our minds, practice mindfulness, which is the capacity to observe thought. In essence, it's not necessarily remove thought. It's more the capacity to be so present that we can actually observe what we're thinking. So if we want to use this energy at its best, that's what we could be doing. Not removing the thoughts, but it's not giving into the thoughts. It's observing. Wow, look at the sea of thoughts I'm having. Oh, I'm thinking this, I'm thinking that. Oh, I'm having this negative thought again. I wonder, it's coming again. Having that curiosity to observe your thoughts is what can actually diminish the erratic thinking and the tension and the overwhelm, because under these trances, there can be also an overwhelm of information coming our way. And then with the erratic thinking, what can happen is that we have great ideas, but we have no idea how to land them. Then there's 3 million ideas, and we can go from here to there to there to there to there, and not be able to concretize anything. So at this moment, if we can focus our energies, or focus a little bit more on a project, instead of 10 projects, maybe focus on one and give it all your attention, and that way you're not necessarily all scattered. So how do we deal with energies when we are so scattered? Well, do something to bring them back into focus. So that could be focusing on one thing instead of 10, for instance. Now we're going to have also another kind of prominent figure during this time is Venus. Venus here, as we can see, is trining Uranus and trining Pluto and opposing Neptune. So this is a great time to think outside the box when it comes to money, values, relationship, all the Venus things, even pleasure, to give yourselves opportunities maybe to meet new people, go into different environments, and it can be fueled with a lot of passion. This is a part where Venus, Pluto brings out the passion, the raw passion for something. So what gives you true pleasure that you're really passionate about, that you would want to land and ground and feel? It's a very, I would say, yeah, Venus Pluto can be a very magnetic energy. So at this time, it is very possible that we attract people in our lives, that we're fueled and filled with magnetism, and it could be also attracting possibilities, and people, even wealth. There's all these possibilities are in the air, and if we use the energy of this Earth trine that is formed between Venus, loosely Pluto, Uranus, we know it are not yet in that trine, but they will be forming in the next coming years. But that energy of the Earth that can ground things, that can bring things into being, then you might be attracting the people, the resources, and the things you need to actually do what it is that you need to be doing, that you want to be doing, and that gives you pleasure. For this, you gotta get your act a little bit together. Venus and Virgo, as we see, kind of wants to organize life and get yourself organized. This is a great time while Venus is still in Virgo this week to get your act together, get your finances in order. And what we need to make sure is not to be deceived by potentials or possibilities that come our way. This is where we need a lot of discernment, because Venus opposing Uranus could bring us also to certain kinds of fantasies or seeing things with rose-colored glasses. So discernment is extremely important at this time, because you might be, I don't know, meeting some people that are amazing and that seem like the real awesome deal. And in reality, if you jump too fast into an opportunity, you might be then deceived later. So what needs to be done now is open up to all kinds of possibilities, new people, new ways of making money, new resources. Maybe there might be new romantic possibilities that come into your awareness or into your field. If you're single, for instance, that could happen. And again, it depends on every individual chart, because this is like a general energy, but the energy will speak more promptly to people, especially if you have Venus, if you have any points or planets in Virgo at around the 25th degree, or the 20th to the 28th degree of the Earth signs, you might be benefiting from these energies. So if you are that person, then what are the opportunities presenting to you right now that you can leverage? What are the new things? And how are these things going to be grounded? The beautiful thing about Venus and Neptune is also the capacity to fantasize. You see, that's the beauty of it, fantasy. So instead of holding something for reality, it's good to dream. It's good to have fantasies. You know what? The fantasy is created in another realm. That's why the Neptunian realm is the realm of fantasy, of the other side. Venus can bring down to the earth the realm of fantasy, through painting, through art, through movies, through anything that you think, through dreams as well. So how do we land the dreams instead of being deceived by our reality? You see, it's a different thing. How do I land a dream instead of being deceived by our reality? So if you're thinking that reality will match your dreaming self, that is only possible if you're aware that reality moves at a certain speed. In this third dimension, and this is where we're going to have Saturn giving us some reminders a little bit later in the month. Things don't just magically happen. You do have to take into account the nature of time, the nature of physicality, the nature, of physics themselves. So yes, we can dream the dreams and we can land the magic dreams. It's like making a sketch of something you'd like to see. And when it's a sketch, it comes from the dreamland. But to pass it from here to the ground, then we need strategies, and we need Saturn, we need discipline, we need to understand time, to understand matter. And this at this time is possible. This is what's beautiful about the energy of Earth, is that matter, it's more accessible to, especially with Jupiter in Taurus, bringing all kinds of possibilities of accessing matter. And let's leverage that. So how do we access the realistic potential of creating what we want? That is one thing. There's also a possibility with this Venus, this Venus being aspected this week, to have new romantic possibilities or breakthroughs in relationships sometimes. And I think because relationships have been very strained through the last couple weeks of October, Venus was under a lot of strain. Now there's a possibility of renewal. This is part of this Venus, Pluto, Venus, Uranus. There's renewal possible. There's breakthrough possible. So it's not just about breaking up relationships. Sometimes it's about getting to the next level of a relationship by understanding what it's not making it work. And this is part of Venus in Virgo. It's what is not making things work. Let's cut out the things that don't work and leave the ones that do work, so we can find more harmony and more balance. So once we're able to do that, then we don't have to ditch relationships or ditch things that otherwise we might just say, you know what, I'm just going to throw everything out, which can be part of a restless Mars Uranus kind of vibe, or a restless energy that it's like, okay, I just gotta do this, gotta do it now, and I'm not gonna think about it. No, we need to give thought to things. So that is part of it. So on the topic of deception, this is what can happen. I just kind of made this image thinking about Midsummer Night's Dream. I don't know if you know of Shakespeare's play Midsummer Night's Dream, when I don't know who's the one that turns into what's his name? Well, I don't remember. One of the characters is turned into a donkey, and everybody believes he's like the most beautiful being. All the fairies adore him, and then when the spell is over, they actually see it's a donkey, and they're horrified. So this made me think about the fantasies, and when we we think we are completely enamored by something, and we cannot really see what it truly is. So therefore, it is really, really important at this time, especially if you're meeting new people and new possibilities, that you keep your feet well on the ground, and before jumping into bed, make sure that what you see is what you get. Give it time. This is a very important, to give time to time and not act brashly, because the energy might want to go like Mars wants to go, and this is not the time to go, it's the time to go, okay, new possibilities. Let's explore them all and take it easy, okay? So if this is you, please, please, please be aware of this happening to you. And later when the transit passes, going like, oh my God, what was I thinking, you know? So, again, little side note. Now, good other things happen that are fabulous this month. So towards November 8th, so this is towards the next, so the following week, we have Venus entering Libra, and this is a fabulous placement for Venus because Venus in Virgo is not as comfortable. In Libra, it is in its home, where there is beauty. The difference between the Taurus and the Libra for Venus is that Taurus is all about the senses, the natural beauty, everything that's natural. In Libra, we might be talking about everything that is created, like art, like all the tasteful, beautiful things and objects we surround ourselves with. It's also about relationships and the harmony between people. So this is where Venus becomes extremely gracious. And with Venus entering Libra, we will have the possibility of new harmonization in our relationships, which is really important. As we see, we're going to have now a trine. This is really cool because as Mercury leaves this maybe conflictual energy with Mars, it will be making a trine to Neptune. And this is such a transformative time. It's really a time for dreaming, for connecting to something deeper and more spiritual. And because it's going to be in a sextile with Venus and a sextile with Pluto, this forms this little triangle here. It's really the capacity to transform all of our thinking. I think it that way. It's like we can also create beautiful things from the darkest, deepest places of ourselves. When we dig deep, we might find absolute gardens. And when we turn that into compost, then we have flowers. We can be extremely intuitive, creative, very inspired, spiritually inspired. We might have the capacity or the ability to actually communicate with sweetness. This is Venus's grace. You know, we can communicate with kindness. And it's interesting because this is the weekend that we're going to have here, where we're offering a compassionate communication workshop. And it's like, oh, isn't that absolutely perfect for this kind of energy? Compassionate communication is the capacity not to, you know, send your little ball of shit to somebody with your words. Is the capacity to speak truth with a much kinder sense and lovingly. It is absolutely possible. So this is a great time to access that energy, because this is the time where we can have deep insights and transformative communication. And we still have this this tension that Mars Uranus brings between being assertive and then being unpredictable. So actions might also get a little bit erratic. Be careful under these transits with accidents. And this is kind of like, oh, the typical thing of Mars Uranus, oh, accidents. The reason why we come into accidents, it's because the action comes without thought, you know, and then that's when we miss a step. You know, you're missing a step, you didn't see it because you want to get there so fast. So the antidote for this is it's slowness. It's slowing down, so you can actually get to where you're going, but not missing steps, because then that's how we trip and then we fall and then we're actually set back because of the speed. We want this, we want it now, and then we miss important steps. So at this moment, very important to not miss steps, and to go swiftly. So what I was talking about, like, again, I like to create these images based on how I feel them archetypally. And What I feel about going to the depths of the scorpionic realm is that there can be a garden. We can find so much beauty in the scary parts of ourselves. And I gotta admit that when I was pulling up images with the spiders, I was actually feeling this anxiety inside my being, because the spider in the collective psyche, it's associated with fear for some strange reason. It's in our psyche. Spider is fear, but the spider in reality is the master weaver of reality. So the spider weaves and creates, it's almost the holder of the illusion. And the spider is a very, very wise animal. And I don't know exactly when or how the spider became this this animal that produces so much rejection. But when we accept the shadow, and when we go there, we can see the beauty that these master weavers create. Those beautiful webs is like the web of consciousness. So when we can go down there without the fear and observe that in the depths of the depths, there is also a garden, and it's the garden of our deepest thoughts, our deepest human selves. Because when we talk about shadow, we are also talking about light. This is why there's this light in this cave, it's not shadow, it's not just shadow. When there is consciousness, we can actually bring light to the garden of who we are. And the shadow is only there to show us the the contrast, right? Shadow is not a bad thing, as we may believe. The shadow self is not something to get rid of. The shadow self is something to integrate and to see. And when we turn on that light on the shadow parts of ourselves, then we can find this beautiful garden. And I think this is exactly what is happening during this time, that we have with the energy, the way it's moving into our collective psyche. There is this capacity, there is this access. It's almost like we can access this, and we can access it with grace, because Venus is in such a graceful placement. And with the sextiles, remember, it's not a given. So it's something that we need to look for. We need to access ourselves. Is how do we access more grace in our communications, more grace in our thinking? That's why also artistic practices are very beautiful during this time, because when you connect to some kind of artistic practice, you can actually see also where your shadows are, basically connecting to self, through words, through art. I think it's also a beautiful way to do it. Intuitive, creative, and spiritually inspired thinking. This is what we will be having during this time. So look for that master weaver that you are, and go there. Use the scorpionic energy to lead you down and then bring you back up from the underworld transformed, because that is in essence the mission of Scorpio. Is not to keep you down there just seeing the shadows, is to transform all that is shadow into a new sense of self or light. So moving on, woohoo, a lot of stuff. November 10th. So this is where things are gonna might get a little bit tense, because Saturn, and I will talk about Saturn moving direct. Saturn will start its direct motion on November 4th. And now the first encounters it will have, it's with this Mercury moving into Sagittarius, into that square. So what can happen here is that Saturn, when it's in retrograde motion, probably gave us the opportunity to see in whatever house is our Pisces house or area of life, it gives us the opportunity to act from within. Let's say, and I'm going to give you an example that is super literal for me so that you can see how this works, at least the way I observe it, because I observe astrology not just through only the books, but okay, how is this showing up for me? And interestingly enough, I have a little story. I don't know if you remember, if you watch my videos, that back when Saturn had entered my fourth house at 0 degrees, where I have my IC, I have a 0 degree fourth house in Pisces. When Saturn was crossing, there was almost a fire in my house and a lot of appliances burned, and it was this like wake up call that I probably neglecting my home, my house, and all these challenges just showed up literally in my home, and I had to take action, through these challenging times. Well, lo and behold, Saturn keeps going. I kind of neglect my home a little bit. And then I start, as Saturn moves through my fourth house, I'm having these pests in my house. So I'm having mites infestation, had to deal with that. Then I had ants infestation, had to deal with that. Then my cat brought fleas, and I was like, fleas infestation, have to deal with that. And I'm like, at the same time, I have like no energy. I'm going out, I'm doing other things. I'm really having to deal with many things that I kind of left that to the wayside. But something inside of me was like, okay, you need to take care of things here. So these challenging things, I was like, okay, I can see there's all these little challenges, but I'm going to actively do something about it because I want my home to feel safe and to be clean. So I cleaned the whole house, like from top to bottom. I anchored my house because I thought, okay, there might be some weather events, and lo and behold, a week after I anchored my house down, there was this massive storm that created a power outage, and then we had no electricity, no water for 36 hours, and it's like, wow, this is interesting how we need to, I mean, I was thinking all these challenges regarding my home. My pipes froze, and I had to like, dig trenches and have everybody help to, and all that happened in like emergency situations. And this is like, okay, I have to take responsibility for this. I have to take responsibility. And as I'm noticing these very simple responsibilities, like taking care of my cat and my cat's fleas, it's all these things at home. And it's like, wow, this is so literal. Like, wow. Now, when Saturn goes direct, what can happen is if we have not been seeing that this should come from within, then what happens is more difficulty and more challenges comes from our outer world, our outer reality, keeps amplifying basically. And then we might see that it's it's something outside ourselves that becomes the Saturn, So right now it's like, well, I gotta deal with this, but then maybe it's a person or a situation that it's also making it imminent, and then the challenges keep on going and keep on going and keep on going until we address them. So this is why it's important to know which area of life we're being challenged with, because when we address the Saturn parts of life, we actually gain wisdom. And the way I gained my wisdom through this, again, Saturn crossing my angle like this back and forth, it's like, oh, I'm learning how to take care of an off-grid, almost off-grid house. I'm learning to create new systems. I have water, lo and behold, Saturn in Pisces, and I'm having like a flood of water in front of my house because I'm in a low spot. So I'm like bringing gravel in. I'm learning how to deal with things, and it's really a pain in the butt. But I'm like, okay, if I take the wisdom of all that I'm learning, not only I learn that, but then I can also share this knowledge or this wisdom with others that might be wanting to go this route. And I can say to them, look, if you're getting a composting toilet, this is what you need to know. Oh, by the way, if you're getting a tiny home, you need to know that you need to anchor it this way because this and that. And I'm like, then we become beacons of wisdom for others. And this is kind of part of the Saturn lessons, is the wisdom that is gained. by the challenge. So I know Saturn has like the worst reputation ever, but the wisdom that is gained from the challenging things that Saturn brings to our lives is incredible, is immense. So if we work with these challenges, we just become stronger. And then we know how to deal with things, and then things are not that bad. The next time that something happens, it's like, it's like piece of cake, So going back to Saturn and Mercury, what is the ask? So bearing in mind what Saturn is doing and Saturn's function, which is to structure and to give form to things, and through discipline and through consistency. What can happen here is that our thoughts, our communication might be all jumbled. We might not have access to like a positive expression of our thought. Like, it's different when Mercury and Jupiter is a very different thing, because we feel super confident. With Mercury Saturn, we might lose complete confidence in our ability to speak, or even in our own thoughts. So it can create mental clutter, depression, negative talk. So a potential for pessimism, limitation, critical thoughts will require extra effort to overcome mental obstacles. And this is where we can be our worst enemy, is what we're thinking. There is a potential for this is more like Mars opposition Uranus that I talked about already. But with the Saturn, we might have a lot of this. So this is how, for me, it looks like. Bing. I created these images thinking of the possibilities that this challenge can bring us. First, that we have this kind of dark cloud in our thoughts, and that we cannot really speak, because why bother? That the constructs that we have in our mind are probably too strict, too difficult, not worth even pursuing. So why bother? It could come also from the need to focus. I think part of the Saturn Mercury is also the capacity to focus. If we harness, instead of the negative thinking, we can focus on something. So that's why I put this image. We might have a big puzzle, a big confusion of things, a big task ahead, and we don't know how to approach it. But if we look at it as a puzzle that we're putting together, instead of an obstacle that we can't overcome, we can actually engage in a very dynamic way of communicating. So for instance, okay, it's going to require an effort, but if I take the steps towards first overriding my negative thinking or my self-deprecating thoughts, and also try not to project onto others what, for example, if I believe I'm not good enough, and I might say to somebody, oh, that's really bad what you're doing, that's a projection, right? So if we're able to look at how our thoughts are, again, I bring back mindfulness. If we're able to just look at the thoughts with compassion and not with pessimism, that's number one. Number two, what tools are we gathering to be able to communicate more efficiently, more assertively? Where are we lacking confidence, and how can we gain confidence back? So all these things we can do during this difficult transit of Saturn to Mercury, because it can feel like this. And if you are going to feel like this, it's very hard to get out of this when we don't have tools. And one of the tools definitely is compassion. We need compassion. So last but not least, and this video is really long, but I hope you're getting a lot out of it. The new moon in Scorpio, and this new moon in Scorpio has this conjunction to Mars, and the moon, sun, Mars. I'm gonna read a little bit from Ren Butler's The Archetypal Universe, which is, a book that I absolutely love. And Ren Butler is my mentor, whom I have an extremely high esteem. So this goes: passionate enthusiasm for life, a capacity for wholehearted action, dynamic expressions of feeling. So this is very, very, very possible and positive, given that Neptune is trining this new moon. So there's almost like a new way. Again, if we go to that cave where the spiders are and get that out of there, there can be a new way that is given to us by a part of ourselves that is not necessarily rational. Because when we talk about the water element, we don't talk about reason, we don't talk about matter, we talk about feeling, we talk about sensing, we talk about the things that are invisible. We don't know what, but it's a vibe, it's a vibe. So this is where we can access a vibe. So can we vibrate ourselves into this passionate enthusiasm for life? What is fueling our passion? And what is giving direction to our life? I think at this moment, through this energy, we can harness the potential that this Neptune is giving us, if we are able to override our own mental blockages. Because you see, we have both things happening at the same time. Saturn's still squaring Mercury, and that is, it's not easy, because we have the capacity, or a different axis. Instead of thinking, if we move from thinking to feeling during this time, we might actually fare very well, because we will be channeling energy. We will be getting insight. And insight is none other than something that comes from here, from an intuitive place. So at this time, I would say, leave your mind, get your brain, and put it aside. Otherwise, it could definitely obstruct the great possibility of finding this light. Why did I put this image here? Because this is the Neptunian realm. The Neptunian realm, where we can find compassion, sensitivity, imagination, harmony. This is where actions can flow more smoothly with less resistance. We have the capacity to access a compassionate and visionary leadership. Like, it's a whole new realm of possibility, but we need to be able to tame this beast, the one that's saying you can't do it, this is not possible, what are you thinking, blah, blah, blah. If we take this out for a little bit, and that lasts through the new moon, we will be planting a seed that will bring us here. The reason I put this image and it spoke to me is because the child represents that innocence that we have within, that all of us are connected through this innocent heart. And this light is the light that will guide us through this unknown. You see, the realms of Neptune are the realms of the unknown, because the realms of the assertive, I know everything, Mars wants this, the sun wants that, I know, I got it all figured out. That's the will, and the will is needed, but the will is only needed when we can trust the unknown. If we think we know everything, we don't know everything. We just know that there is the capacity to create and co-create anything we want. But this unknown is the great mystery that if we give into, we will be given a light and we will navigate. This is exactly what Neptune does. When we trust that divine flow, we navigate. We don't try to control life. And this is, in essence, the end of what I have to say today, is that what we are closing, the chapters we are closing, are the chapters of control, so that we can move into the chapters of trust, and intuition. You see, control is different from intuition. Control is of the ego, and intuition is of the divine. The ego is also divine, but in a different way. The ego serves a purpose, but if we only focus on what the ego wants, then we might not be actually tuning into what the divine wants, and we might be missing a beautiful, wonderful opportunity for more compassion, more connection, more love, more creativity. So you see, this is what we're being challenged with at this time. So let's harness the energies of compassion. Let's harness the energies of the divine. Let's harness the energies of Venus. Venus is going to be helping a lot. Grace, beauty, harness that. Align with that. So that's what we align with. And beware of rash, cutting, reckless, impatient, and self-deprecating thought. All of that is what we're going to have to be looking at. That will be challenging. But if we align with the energy of trust, we know that there is another way of existing. The astrology is neutral. Like I say, there's no right or wrong in astrology. There's how we align or not align, or how we just ride the waves, So now you know. That's why I do this video. So you know what to align with when the turmoils come, and when the collective psychic brings something up, you can be aware and change your thinking. This is the absolute magnificent gift of the conscious human we are becoming. Because astrology in the past would have been more deterministic, because the level of consciousness of humans maybe didn't even support the idea that we could actually be co-creating and creating with our thinking, with our resonance, with our frequency. Now we know that that is what is. So we have this access to co-create with the stars, to see that there's a conversation in the collective psyche with the planets, and then we can also choose. We are absolutely free to choose how we react to everything and every situation. And that's what I'm going to leave you with. This was a lot of information. Thank you again for your patience, for following this. Please feel free to share, like, subscribe, share this information with people if they might be needing some guidance. And also make sure to check in the description box below my offerings. You can also always contact me for a reading if you are going through a tough time. At this moment in time, I am offering solar returns at 50% off, because I'm having a lot of people kind of in crisis, having birthdays and wanting solar returns. So I thought, why not make it accessible for as many people in the month. Oh, I don't know what happened. I hope the whole video didn't disappear. Anyway, I'm gonna leave you here. Thank you very much. And I will see you in the next video. Bye.